This week on World Traveler Cooking, we're going to make Liem's Salju, or Liem's snow cake. Now this is a very interesting cake. It's actually two different cakes, one suspended in the other. The inner cake is going to use the egg yolks of this of these 8 eggs, plus butter, sugar, and believe a bit of flour. So it's basically a basic heavy butter cake in the middle. And then the outside is this really fluffy, I don't really know how to describe it other than saying that it has a texture very much like a flour cake, but actually it's made entirely out of coconut milk, the egg whites, some sugar of course, vanilla, and agar-agar. So it's actually kind of more like a gelatin or an agar-agar based dessert on the outside, but it has a texture very much like a regular cake, and it's absolutely delicious. So this was the second dish I ever got a chance to try to make with Liem, and so again, going based on my notes from about 10 years ago. And I haven't actually tried to make it before, but aside from the time I made it with her, so again, I'm going to have to kind of improvise on some points and kind of let her spirit guide me in some respects. So let's go ahead and get started. We make the inner piece first. So we'll separate these eggs, and that'll be the first thing we'll do. So normally you'd want to use a hand mixer for this, but I don't have one, or rather the one I have is still in transit. So we're going to go ahead and use a hand blender for this. I'm going to start by whipping the eggs a little bit. Then I'm going to add the sugar. So now I'm going to blend in the 200 grams of butter. I'm just going to work this in. Obviously with a hand mixer it'd be much easier, but I don't have that, so I'll just be back when I have this worked in, and you can see what it's like at that point. So I'm still working this in, but you can see we're making progress. Remember that egg yolks are an emulsifier, so we're actually shooting for a stable emulsion of the butter, the egg yolks, and the sugar, and I'll be back when I have that done. So now that this is together, I'm going to continue to beat it for or emulsify it for about 10 minutes. This is designed to make it just a little bit more frothy, and then I'll be back. So this is now very smooth. And I'm going to start whisking in the flour. I have about 60 grams of flour here, and I want to whisk it in so that I have something that's still very smooth at the end. This should definitely be a batter, not a dough. And unlike many batters, we want this one to be very smooth. Usually people avoid over mixing cake batters because you worry about gluten formation, but we're mixing this into what's basically a fat and protein mixture, and so gluten's not going to form. So it actually doesn't matter so much what kind of bread flour or what kind of flour you use. I'm using an all-purpose flour, so like a cake flour, a low gluten flour, but if you wanted to use a higher gluten flour because that's what you had on hand, it would still be fine. So we're going to whisk this for just a couple more moments, let it make sure that it's fully really smooth, and then we will start baking this. So here I have the cake pan. It is now greased, and I'm going to pour the batter in. I'm going to use a rubber spatula to get the rest out, and then this will go in the oven. So now this will go in the oven at 375 Fahrenheit, that's about 180 Celsius, for about 25 minutes, and then we'll take it out. My oven's a little cool on the cool side thermostat-wise, so I have mine set a little higher, but I'll be back in about 25 minutes when this is coming out of the oven. And here's the cake, the inner part of the cake, now that we've gone ahead and put it in the oven. Now I'm going to remove it from the pan, and we're going to stretch the inside a little bit. I'll be right back once it's out of the pan. So now this is out, we're going to stretch the inside out just a little bit gently, because this is going to get suspended inside the other cake, and if we don't do that, then there won't be room on that side. So there we go. Now we're going to let this sit and cool down, and while that happens, we're going to start the outside layer of the cake. So here I have a liter of coconut milk with 250 grams of sugar added, and now to that I'm going to add 4 packets of agar-agar. Each packet is it looks like about 7 grams, so that should be 28 to 30 grams of agar-agar. I'm going to cut these open and add them, and then I'll be right back. So here I'm adding my agar-agar. I've added 3 packs already, and here's the 4th. And then to this I'm going to add half a can of condensed milk. We'll get back to you with the measurements on that, and we're going to start heating this. So in goes half a can or so of condensed milk. This is about 250 grams. And at this point I'm going to start heating this up. Now the idea is here we're going to kind of heat this up until it thickens a bunch, and while it thickens I'm going to go ahead and whip the egg whites until we have really stiff peaks there. Then we'll fold this together, we'll assemble the cake, and then we'll put it in the refrigerator and let it set. So it's kind of a very unusual cake. Yeah, we're getting there. A fairly unusual cake. Simply because, as I say, you know, half of it's almost like a gelatin kind of medium. So anyway, I'm going to finish adding this. I'll start heating it up, and then we'll turn our attention to the eggs. Now something I could have done better would have been to start heating this up and kind of make sure it's stable before I go to the egg whites. I actually had a little bit of a problem here with the agar kind of sticking to the bottom a little bit, but I've gotten that taken care of. So it is important to stir this early on. I caught this before it burned, but if I had not caught it before it burned, I would have had to make a quick trip to the grocery store for more ingredients. And that's certainly not fun. So I also suspect that if you can't get agar-agar, which you ought to be able to get at any Asian store, as well as, for example, places serving vegetarian stuff, since it is a vegetarian alternative to gelatin, you might be able to do this with gelatin, but I have never really tried. The texture might come out just a little different. So now I'm going to wait for this to thicken, and once it's pretty thick, then we'll stir in these egg whites, which are now quite stiff, and then we'll go from there. And now this is thick. So I'm going to go ahead and I've taken off the heat and I'm going to let it cool down just slightly. Stir it, make sure everything's nice and smooth. And then I'm going to stir in the egg whites. I'm going to fold in the egg whites. So it's no longer boiling, so I am folding the egg whites in until I kind of get, and then I'll stir it until I get kind of a consistency that I can, that's going to be similar all the way through. And this seems about right. So now we're going to assemble our cake. So I'm going to start by pouring in about half of my cake mixture. Here we are. And then onto this, we will place the previous cake. Now I did have trouble with this sticking just a little bit, so that's why there's that little bit of that area there. It did stick a little bit. But then I'm going to basically cover it up, fill up the cake mold, and then this goes in the refrigerator. I may have filled this up with just a little more than right. I'll be back once I've added the rest of this, and then I will actually, I'll just add the rest, I'll put it in the refrigerator, and I'll be back once this is set. So here is the snow cake out of the refrigerator. It is not quite as fluffy as it should be. I think that's largely because I didn't let the thickened coconut and milk mixture thicken or cool enough. But if we cut a piece of it in half, you'll see it basically is this yellow cake inside this white cake, and it has a very cake-like texture here. This one's a little more agar-agar-like just simply because I think maybe I should have used a little more egg whites. But still looks okay. I'm going to cut a couple pieces and I'll plate them up. So I've just cut 2 pieces, I've laid them up like this, and now I think we're ready for the taste test. And now for the taste test. This is quite nice. Maybe next time I will only use 3 packets of agar-agar. It's a little bit crunchy, but still okay. The flavor is really nice. You get the coconut milk and the condensed milk as your primary flavors. Now, I didn't add any vanilla this time, but you certainly could. Now I'm going to try it with a bit of yellow cake inside. Now that's delicious. On the whole, I think this came out okay. I think I did use a little more agar-agar than I would next time, and probably should use a little more egg whites. However, this definitely doesn't disappoint. Now, if you find this content interesting, I hope I've earned a like and a subscription from you, and please visit my Patreon page where you can get early access to my new videos, 3 to 5 months of early access. Now, on top of that, I haven't come across anybody else who makes a dish like this, but if you do, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Recipes in the description. Bon appetit, and see you next week.